Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to Facebook Live Q&A for this is the Know Thyself Revolution Facebook group, and it is June the 7th, year 2023. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Let me get started with our panel or the members that are available right now. We have Rob here that is a author of the book Stop Thinking, and we have Patricia here, who is part of our core group of meditators, and Hugh is preparing his dinner. He's online with us, but he is back and forth between dinner. So I'll get started. I was hoping April or somebody would join. Caesar, April would join. You want me to start with the tough stuff, Patricia? Yeah, you want me to continue from last week? So last week we were talking about, and we came to the, this is what I want to say. Patricia, you shared that you were 3 years old and okay, I'll give you a little bit of background. One of the things I've been doing is the past week, I've been re-listening to the book Karma by Sadhguru. And Sadhguru really goes deeply into what karma actually is and what is our karmic accumulation, what is our karmic accumulation. So I went back. So when you said you were 3 years old and your father was scaring you, terrorizing you, right? So in that moment, and I'll start off with Rob, in that moment, when we are 3 years old and we are having an experience. So just like Patricia, what would happen with me when I was 3 years old, when I was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, my mom and I already knew my mom. Now I look back on it and I know my mom and I were like huge ego battle. Like I was very stubborn, very obstinate with my mom. Even at 3 years old, I was very obstinate. And somehow, even till today, like I like the fabric cotton. I don't know, I like the feel of that softness of cotton. The t-shirt, you know how when you wash the t-shirt and it gets like really torn almost, and the softness of the t-shirt, I like that feel of that softness of that cotton. Like I always look like when I'm buying clothes that it's 100% cotton. So I remember even as a 3-year-old child, I would fight with her. She would try to put me in the sparkly metallic clothes, shiny clothes. And she would kind of explain, oh, this has and I would go, no, I don't want to wear it. I want cotton. I just want my plain shirt, right? And she would go, no, she would explain there's an inner lining that is pure cotton. You're not going to feel but I would feel it because from the outside, your hands are touching the metallic, like the metallic thing. So when I look back at the 3-year-old me, I know that my mom what would transpire when I was 3 years old is, I'll wait for, I'm hoping Kelly and Kelly are going to join. So what would happen to me when I was 3 years old is she would get me dressed, right? She would put eyeliner and she would put makeup on me, and then would start the dress part, right? Like I'm in my undershirt and she would try to start and put this outfit on me. I would say, no, I don't want to wear it. And she would like hit me, right? No, I don't want to wear it, hit me, and then scream at me. And now there are tears. Now all the eyeliner is like flowing down my face, right? Now she has to wash my face and she has to get me ready again, right? So I kind of knew that. So when I look back on that incident, I know And I understand from what Sadhguru talks about, and I'll take a pause and I'll introduce Kelly and Kelly have joined. Kelly and Kelly have like years of spiritual teaching, decades of spiritual teaching, as well as Qigong teaching. So welcome, Kelly and Kelly. We're actually continuing on a conversation we had last week. But I'm talking about an incident, and we can talk about it. So Rob, here's the question. So when I look upon it, I kind of know this is the karmic accumulation, Patricia, that I want you to know that the point of attraction is us. The point of attraction is me. So when I look at that 3-year-old child, the reason why my mom was hitting me and being abusive is my resentment of abuse, verbal abuse, and physical abuse. I have always been resentful, like from the head to the toe, resentful of verbal abuse and physical abuse, right? And this is what Sadhguru also says, that every human, what they attract in the book Karma, he says, a word that is used in Hindu philosophy is, April has joined as well. Let me give it a minute so that I don't have to repeat. Good evening, April. Thank you so much for joining. So I was continuing from the last week's conversation, so I'm going to explain. So what Sadhguru says is, what we attract in our life is what is called vasanas, right? We attract according to the smell or odor that we are giving out. The vibrational frequency that we are giving out is what we attract in our life. So when I look back on the 3-year-old me, I do see that it was my resentment of her hitting me that attracted that more and more in my life. So with that, I'll give it to Rob. And that's where the other second part of the compassion comes, right? That the 3-year-old, you know, our story will be, oh, how is the 3-year-old attracting that in their life? How can that innocent child attract that in their life? Or how can that 4-year-old attract that in their life, right? Or how can that's an innocent child. That is the human side of us that we see. But at the level of soul, and the karmic memory is already what Sadhguru explains, right? That there's memory written at the mental body, the physical body, and the karmic body. And the karmic body is at the level of energy. That karmic energy is already written, right? So if that is already written, then we are born with it. It's he also gives the example that he says the greatest thing that scientists could do is probably if they would know how to imprint memory on electricity, right? As energy flows, imprinting memory, because that's how the karmic body is. That energy is, that memory is imprinted at the level of energy. But that, Rob, since you joined first, if you want to speak to that, that's where another level of compassion comes. That's what I wanted to explain to Patricia. Go ahead, Rob. Thank you.
Great question. Great topic. Thank you for having me. I think the first thing to do is to recognize that when we talk about attraction, we're not talking about physically asking for, and I'll bring in the bully and the victim. I was the bullied, and the bully is out there, and the bully and the victim are vibrating on the same level of fear. The bully is fearful and the victim is fearful, and I attracted that into my life, and I didn't ask for it. I didn't physically ask for it. And I think this is where some might get confused, is in the physical realm, no one is walking around saying, please bully me, or please turn me into a bully. It's that hidden, unknown vibration within of fear that I didn't know that I had until later in life. So yes, we are attracting what we vibrationally are. We're not attracting what we speak of. And so, I've heard many people say, I'm not asking for this in my life. You don't understand, Rob. I've worked so hard. I'm meditating. I'm saying, bring this into my life, bring goodness into my life, and I'm still having these horrible events happening to me, and I'm not asking for them. So, it's not fair to say I'm attracting this into my life. And that's not what we're saying. We're not saying that we're purposefully out there saying, please bring me harm, please bring me hardship. What we don't realize is there's an inner hidden vibration, and it's nearly in everyone, all walks of life. The more aware and conscious we are of the hidden vibrations, the less that happens to us. It doesn't make us immune. Someone can, run their shopping cart into our car. I'm not saying that just because we're aware of our fearful nature that exists in a human body, it doesn't mean that our entire life is cleaned up. But it does mean that I can pay attention to this inner vibration, and I can practice this peaceful vibration, and we all know the difference, which means now I'm shining the light of consciousness onto this energy body that exists inside of me, and I'm not allowing that to consume me, which means now the karmic energy can slow down. There's a long train of karmic energy in my life, and I still get hit and whammied by these things occasionally, but that massive train of karmic energy is slowing down as I become more aware of it. I practice more presence power in the now, more peaceful vibrations. The less that happens. I'm not exactly sure how to tie all that in with a young child. No one's saying that the young child is deliberately asking for it. It's just an unconscious vibrational state within us, and those states appear powerful and weak in the world, like the bully and the victim, and yet it's still based on fear. Does that kind of explain where you were going?
Yes. Incredible. Thank you so much, Ram. Perfect example. Absolutely grateful for it. And then, did you want to speak anything else, Ram? That was it?
No, I think that's it for now. I might chime in a little bit if I hear something else that I feel called to speak on. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So April, I don't know if you understood the topic. So one of the things that Patricia, last week, I don't know what we were talking about. We were talking about, oh yes. So we were talking about one of the things that Eckhart says, right, in The Power of Now, that we finally, from a level or depth of presence, kind of understand that those people could not have acted any differently at their level of consciousness. They are acting out their conditioned pattern, right? So Eckhart says, how can you blame their illness? And I can look up the exact let me see.
Well, it was, we were talking about setting the boundaries too. Remember Michelle with her brother setting the boundary?
No, that was not last week. That was not last week, sorry. Here he says the mind identified state is severely dysfunctional. It is a form of insanity. Almost everyone is suffering from this illness in varying degrees. The moment you realize this, there can be no more resentment. how can you resent someone's illness? The only appropriate response is compassion. So I was explaining that to Patricia, right? That I mean, I was explaining to everyone that I have that compassion for my mother now. When I look back, she could not have acted any differently from what she did, because I know how her mother was towards her, right? So that's one level of compassion. So Patricia brought up that when she was 3 years old, she was terrorized by her father. She has that memory, right? So I was explaining, now the new explanation is even when we are 3 years old, the attraction is a karmic memory that we have. That's what is causing the attraction. So if you want to talk about karmic memory, how we could have attracted things when we were 3, 2, 4, 5, 6. And I explained some of the things that Sadhguru also says in his book Karma about karmic memory.
So Rob had his explanation, and he did really well on explaining the vibration that we give off. So I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction to give a little bit of a different perspective. We do have a vibration that we give off, and our parents are unconscious, most of them, and that they are only able to, you're only able to act at your level of consciousness. You're only able to behave, respond based off of your knowledge, your experience, and then wherever you are on your spiritual journey. The other thing that comes into play a lot is past life issues. So past life, as far as like my daughter Candace, when she was little, she was about 3 years old, and she would tell me about other lives in New York, and her parents had were in a car accident and died. So it's things like that. I have memories of certain people in my lives being friends or being different family members than they are this time. And then those things that happened between us, the relationship we had between us, like my brother, for example, I have a specific lifetime in Germany, a memory of a lifetime in Germany where my brother was my child. And my current husband was my current husband. So my brother in this lifetime is obviously my brother, but that is still karma, that's still energy, that's still information, and that is brought forward into this lifetime. So my brother always felt like my child. He has always felt that way. So that's another avenue to look at this with. You know, if you had some sort of bad relationship, we'll just use the word bad, with somebody, it can definitely bring issues in this lifetime forward. So I think everything that, you know, Rob said was, you know, fits. And then if you add this to it, it gives you a deeper understanding. One of the biggest things, though, is really people can only act on their level of consciousness. They can only act on what they know and what they will allow themselves to know. So many people are just not open to these concepts. They're not open to growing. They're not open to learning. We, on the other hand, because we're all on this panel, right? We are. So we're able to gain that deeper insight, to gain that deeper awareness, and to see how these things play out in your life and how they can be catalysts for growth. How you can use these negatives for growth. So that's what I've tried to do, is I've tried to look at all the things that have happened, and then I find the lesson, I find the good in them, and then I use them for my growth in my spiritual journey, and then just also in my personal growth as a human.
Incredible. Thank you so much, April. Grateful for the input from both of you, Rob and you. And from what both of you said, Rob and April, I got reminded of, so one of the things that for the past few days I've been doing is, since you mentioned Matthias De Stefano, I've been listening to him as well as some of the interviews that, I don't know if you'll know of Robert Edward Grant, who does Polymath. I've been listening to quite a few interviews with him. And there's this podcaster, Aubrey Marcus. Aubrey Marcus was interviewing Robert Edward Grant. And in one of the interviews, they were talking about judgment. They were talking about like the same things, right? The compassion. And the level at which Rob understood that there's that vibrational, that energy body, like Sadhguru says, right? At the energy body level, there's a karmic body, and that memory is written that we are fearful, that we are power. I also feel there's a lot of powerlessness as we are born, leave alone the lack and incompleteness. There's a sense of powerlessness that we are born with, right? And so that shows. So Aubrey Marcus was talking about, so in the knowing that the reason why we want to, and I want everyone to know this, is the reason why I'm saying get to the level that Rob is, get to the level that April is, get to the level that I have come with anybody that I've encountered, whether it's my mother or anybody else, get to that level of compassion. And because that's the alchemy, and this is what Aubrey Marcus says. I don't remember the name of the Taoist woman that he was talking about. He talks about this story that there was this Taoist follower, right? She was following the Tao philosophy. This woman went down some path that was like very dangerous, and 3 men start to rape her. And during the rape, what she does is, instead of actually looking at them and looking at them as, oh my God, what is this happening to me? Because she was of the Tao following, she looked at them and their pain and suffering. Through them, she saw their pain and suffering. And when she did that, all 3 men came to tears. And what, and I'm paraphrasing here. So when they came to tears, they told her that they could feel their inner essence, right? So, what they told her is they realized what they did, and they would always protect her for the rest of their lives. For the act that they did, they would always protect her for the rest of their lives. So Aubrey Marcus, this is what he was presenting, that look what can happen when we get to that level of compassion and understanding, that an alchemy can arise, that other person can actually be transformed. The same thing what Jesus has said to have done, right? When he was on the cross and he did forgive them for they know not what they do. This is exactly what Jesus did on the cross as well. That's what Robert Edward Grant said. So that's another level of compassion that we need to understand, that an alchemy can, like Rob in his understanding at that moment, there's an alchemy that has occurred in that moment with whoever had bullied him. So that alchemy probably can happen with your father, Patricia, when you have that level of compassion, right? Is what I wanted to offer in this Facebook Live Q&A session. With that, I'll go to Kelly, and Kelly, I think they're ready to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Rob and April shared some really, really great things. Thank you for that. I have a very different perspective on karma.
Mm-hmm.
Karma is very misunderstood in the 3D. It's actually part of the illusion that keeps people stuck in believing that these things were supposed to happen to you.
Yep.
regardless of what your soul contract is, there's a thing called potentials, but
Yep.
there's always potential for something. And what we don't take into consideration a lot is that when it comes to abuse of any kind, is that people who abuse, yes, they're hurting. I agree with that. They're already in a place of pain. However, their shadow looks for an opportunity to hurt someone who's vulnerable. And that, like when Rob was saying in April too, that it doesn't mean that you deserve it to happen to you. It doesn't mean that you walk around looking for it,
Yep.
or even that you may hold that particular vibration. Especially when we're children, we're very innocent when we're children.
Yep.
And there's a vulnerability and a joy that is there that other people's shadows will take advantage of.
Yep.
If they can,
Yep.
if the opportunity presents itself.
Yep.
And that includes people like our parents who may not be aware of themselves. They think that they're doing what's best, or they're just, if they're disciplining or anything like that. You know, when Poonam was telling her story, I wrapped her inner child in a lot of love because her inner child did not deserve that to happen to her. And of course, her young self would resist what was happening because children do.
Yep.
Children know that abuse is wrong. They
Yeah,
know
they
that
know.
it's not right.
It's just normal.
And so that is a normal thing
Yep.
for us to rebel against that and to resist.
Yep.
And, you know, sometimes there's a lot of talk today about, you know, people grooming. That's why there is such a thing as pedophilia, sexual abuse with kids, because, you know, people have found a way to bypass other people's intuition.
Yep.
If children are already in a vulnerable situation, there's people that know how to take advantage of that, and
Yep.
that's their shadow.
Yep.
So as someone who was sexually assaulted in my 20s, you have to be very careful not to bypass yourself from any of that trauma. What I did to myself was I told myself that all of those things, well, I guess it was in my soul contract. Oh, I guess that I attracted it to me somehow. And I did all of those things. And I was looking outside of myself that this was supposed to happen to me or something. And what I did was, well, now I need to be a better person. I have to do all of these things to prove that I didn't, you know, deserve this to happen. And it took a while for me and a good therapist to actually say, hey, you know what? You didn't deserve that to happen. And this was a person that I had trusted, did not see it coming. There's no intuition that said, hey, you should not be around this person. It was, I was in a vulnerable moment and that person decided to take advantage. And when I understood that, then I had the responsibility to heal myself and to release anything that I was holding on to. And then I could have compassion for that other person who I knew that I wasn't the only person that they had done that to. And sometimes I feel that we try to skip past certain parts of our healing because we want to get to the gratitude. We want to get to the good part. We don't want to deal with all the stuff that doesn't make us feel good.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to dig through that stuff that doesn't make you feel very good to get there.
Yep.
So I'm going to let Kelly talk because I know he's got some things to say. So I would love for people to have compassion for themselves if they're going through something like that.
Mhm.
Or if you have those memories and they're coming up and out for you to release them, have compassion for yourself first. You don't need to find the lesson, because oftentimes when we're trying to find the lesson or the silver lining, we're looking for something that's outside of ourselves when we need to be going inward. And how do I feel inside? And that it's okay for me to feel this way right now, because maybe back then I didn't allow myself to feel good, or I didn't allow myself to feel bad about this situation. You tried to make the best of it. Maybe you created coping mechanisms. You know, maybe you had behaviors that happened out of that. Have compassion always for yourself first. Your self-love is so important, especially in those things. And when you're releasing that kind of trauma, I always encourage people to go, give that compassion, give that love to yourself, because that's who needs it. Because in that moment, whatever happened to you, you didn't have that. So it's okay to give it to yourself first. And once you work through that, you can look at the other person, because that person is outside of you, right? And say, okay, now I have more compassion for who you were, for what you did. But your healing, the most important work that you can do is your own inner work, your healing. And that doesn't have to involve another person at first. So I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Very well said. I agree with you about what Rob and April said. Yeah, karma is very misunderstood, and a lot of people keep regurgitating things that have been said for thousands of years, except the information is based in the illusion. Karma is all about how we use our awareness. And children can't understand this. So children cannot be responsible, and they cannot attract to themselves the suffering that they experience in this 3D world, in this illusion. Children, yes, everyone is born with karma histories written into their energy fields. But when you have adults abusing children, it is the adults who are preying on the children, who are seeking the power and the control. It's always about power. It's always about that reptilian greed for power. And Rob, that hidden vibration, that hidden space is shadow. It is the reptilian brain, the energy that we feed to our reptilian brain through fear and not choosing love, that feeds shadow, and shadow becomes a hidden part of our personality that if we don't do our work, we don't become aware of it. And we can't understand why we do certain things or why certain things happen to us. And we stay stuck in victim issues and never address the violence in our minds or our hearts or in our energy field. That is on a loop.
Hey, Kelly, when you speak of shadow, are you speaking of the definition that Carl Jung puts to shadow? Is that?
Carl Jung did a lot of really good work about shadow, and his is it his red book that actually talked when he actually took notes and recorded his descent or his spiral into madness, when he actually shut himself away, and he actually took notes and observed the process of slowly losing his mind, where he deliberately engaged in magical thinking and delusional thinking to determine the process of actual insanity. So yeah, Carl Jung. I have a background in psychology. I was going to be a marriage and family therapist, but all the school politics sort of left a bad taste in my mouth. So I didn't ever finish, the program. But
I ask because I'm just curious, in what way are you using the term shadow? That's why.
I am using it the way Carl Jung talks about it, in terms of like the hidden parts of our personality, the hidden parts of the archetypes that we haven't looked at, that we haven't addressed, in terms of how we communicate with ourselves. I am using it in that fashion
Gotcha.
in Carl Jung's definition, but my own experience and spiritual work has shown that the physical glands in our brain actually have a personality. The programming of our hypothalamus, amygdala, the reptilian part of our brain, the oldest part of our brain, has ancestral and cellular memory. And this is something that Carl Jung has also talked about as well. And other like Carl Rogers and Maslow and Frankl, they all sort of talk about this whole march through ancestral memory towards, quote unquote, modern society. There's got to be something better, right? But we have to look at the past. We have to look at the patterns that we have exhibited, that we have grown up with. Like as Poonam said, like her mother, she, Poonam, you recognize that your mother acted the way that she did because of her patterning from her mother, right? Which is what I've experienced with my parents. There'll be days where it's like, oh, look, it's my grandma, but it's my dad. It's like, my dad's exhibiting my grandma's personality. I'm just like going, all right, is it time for cake or coffee, or like, what's going on? What part of the personality, what part of my dad's shadow is actually coming to the surface? Why is this aspect of his personality exhibiting his mother's or his father's personality or behavior? And oftentimes it's for control. When we feel out of control, when we feel like we have no control and we are overwhelmed, which sometimes happens with parents, the easiest and simplest thing is to gain control by controlling our kids or the kids that are around us. Because you know what? We know as an adult that they are weaker than we are physically, and they mentally and emotionally are not at the same level, and they don't understand reality yet. So we can tell them whatever we want. We can scare them and feel good about like eliciting a response in someone and controlling their reality that way. And this is where we
Yeah.
get predators, and this is where that whole predatory aspect comes out.
Well, and kids also, like very young kids actually do have, a grasp on their own reality.
Oh yeah. Oh sure.
But
their
it's
reality,
adults who
but
are like, oh no, you
Yeah.
have to adopt my reality because
Yeah.
you're in my family.
yes,
And if you
exactly.
don't do it,
Exactly.
you're
Yeah,
out.
which
Yeah.
is the other thing too. This is
And then we get into the whole, I need to be accepted by my family, or I
Yeah.
need to, I
Yep.
need to be good so I don't get punished, right?
Mhm,
Like that
mhm.
whole.
Yeah, and the whole acceptance thing
Mhm.
as kids opens children up to being controlled and being preyed upon emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever. And those areas of our personality that feed off of fear and anxiety and control and judgment and anger, the lower emotions feed our shadow, feed those mechanisms of survival. That's where our shadow comes from, is that base reptilian, that base animalistic primal need to survive and survive at any cost. And oftentimes as kids growing up, like I know I adopted a lot of my parents' behavior, all the political and historical and with all the research stuff. And I worked with my mom for 30 years. I've taken care of my parents for 30 years with various different accidents and stuff like that. And I've been in close contact and observed their parents because I grew up around my grandparents, and witnessing my grandparents' behavior manifest in my mom and dad's behavior, seeing that imprint, like what Poonam was talking about, how her mother was just repeating what her grandmother had done to her mother, right? The same pattern on a loop. And that's what shadow does. Shadow gets us into these loops and it's that energy. It is that energy. It has a palpable physical feeling in our bodies. So thank you for bringing up the whole vibration thing, because that's where we need to understand vibration, is what things actually feel like in our bodies. Because we can tell when our minds are in certain spaces and are engaging in certain energies. Understanding the ego is great. Understanding the process of being able to look at the ego is absolutely fantastic, but we need to understand, this is why being present with ourselves is so important. Because when we understand how to be present with ourselves and pull ourselves away from negative and destructive patterns, we begin to develop an understanding of contrasts in behavior and what they feel like mentally, emotionally, and physically. And when we give ourselves those keys, our personal understanding, our personal language for those contrasts, and feeling those differences in our realities, when we just choose to consciously participate either in fear or not fear, love, and are present with ourselves, then everything begins to change. And we become aware of our shadow. We become aware of that part of us that impulses us to act irrationally or do stupid things, quote unquote, big air quotes, stupid things
Yeah,
that seem like good ideas at the time.
because you can tame your ego, like your ego reactions, your ego triggers, your emotional triggers, you can tame those. You still have a shadow to
Yeah.
contend with. That
Yeah.
shadow energy, you could be smooth sailing.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's gonna try to, oh, let's play with this. Let's try that. Or someone else's, actually, other people's energies. Because if somebody maybe is holding an energy of jealousy,
Yeah.
not even at you, but you interact with
Yeah.
them, that shadow be like, oh, let's see if we can hook them into doing.
Yeah. Oh, let's grab that and feed off of that, and let's like pull it in and make it part of ours, so that we can keep our mind, or keep this person that we're feeding off of unstable, and keep ourselves unstable and cause drama between the two of us. And this is why learning how to feel the body and not just meditate, but like move, go for walks. This is why breathing is literally like the key, is one of the most ancient spiritual technologies around, is because you learn how to feel your body move from the inside out.
Hey, Kelly, what's Eckert's view on the shadow? Do you know? I mean, I don't really.
I don't think he actually has one. I haven't. I mean, I read Power of Now and New Earth, and I don't
recall any of the shadow talk.
Nope. I know he skirts around the whole I am and the presence thing, which is ancient ascension concepts of engaging our higher selves, which is where the whole concept of presence actually comes from. But I haven't seen, I don't know, Poonam, Trisha, I don't know.
He just talks about conditioned patterns, which would
Yeah.
be part of the shadow.
Yep.
He talks about our past conditioning, like on chapter 5 of A New Earth, where he talks about the pain body. He talks about all our patterns that are within us, the same thing that we are talking about.
It's almost like he's referring to like a sneaky ego, a sneak coming in on you, but you're calling it shadow, so it's just new. It's new for me, the shadow.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
Yeah, Carl Jung's done some really awesome writing on shadow work. His book on the archetypes is really cool because it gives you a framework for understanding cultural archetypes and the programming that comes with regional cultures and how things carried over from Europe and stuff like that. So the programming, the structures of our mental and emotional spaces based on literally archetypes that are present in every culture.
Awesome, incredible. Thank you so much, Kelly and Kelly. Grateful for the input. So before I go to Patricia, I have another question for April. Now, I don't remember my past lives, but I do think that some of these patterns, April, are to do with our, from the near-death experiences that I've listened to, Dr. Eben Alexander, he says that we go through a life review, right? When our soul is exiting the body. And during the life review, we go, oh, I need to, in my next chapter of my life, I need to learn these lessons. And these spiritual teachers in the form of our mothers and fathers and family members are actually showing us the lesson that we need to learn. That was the other way that I understood that my resentment, because I know how resentful all throughout my life, even in my marriage, I was of physical and verbal abuse. It's only when I separated that everything changed, right? That's when the spiritual path started. That's when, the whole thing changed because of that. And I've never been hit or had like an abusive relationship after that, but it happened until then, right? So the energy was shifted. So I know that my lesson was my resentment for verbal and verbal and physical abuse. So when my soul was exiting the body, it must have made the decision that it needed lessons throughout the life until I was, maybe I was 35, 40 years old that I divorced. And that was my spiritual lesson, maybe 38 years old. And I know that the resentment that I had for verbal abuse and physical abuse was what was the essence. Like when I see all of that, and I know of what Sadhguru says, what is karma. And the fact that I love the word vasanas, which is like an odor, smell, and he says it's not so much as it's like an odor of a flower. He does use the word odor of a flower, but he says that we give out a certain vibrational smell kind of, right? And that attracts certain situations into our lives. That's what he says in this book, Karma. I would strongly recommend reading that book too. April, if you wanted to talk about that, thank you.
So the people in our lives, our soul family, they do play certain roles that aid us in accomplishing certain tasks or lessons. Ultimately, the bottom line is the lesson for everybody is to learn unconditional love for yourself and for everybody else. That's the bottom line, to love. It is always about love, and that manifests in different ways. So do you love someone enough who is not well and abused you? Can you provide that forgiveness, that unconditional love, not only for yourself, but for them as a human, as a soul that is hurting? Can you do that? And so it can be hundreds and hundreds and thousands of different types of lessons that you'll get from different people. My dad was it was a very unique kind of situation in a sense. But again, that molded me into being who I am. He was very angry and he was very abusive. However, he always told me I could do whatever I wanted to do. So I seriously, I laugh because it's an issue, but it's not an issue. Like, I will try to put a square in a circle. I will do it. I swear to God, I'm going to do it. Right. So, and it's because of that. So while he was abusive, he's on the other side. He could have fabulous conversations. He's very intelligent and tell me I could do whatever I wanted to do. So, those are all lessons, good and bad. I needed, to learn self-love, and that relationships aren't supposed to be that way. Control is not the way to go. Anger is not a useful emotion. It has its place, but it's not very effective most of the time. But yet still have that deep inner belief, like, you can do it, you can do it. So these lessons play out in many ways, and they all benefit us in our growth, in our ascension, in some way or another. Again, if you allow it, if you allow yourself to get on this path, to go inside, to look at yourself, look at the events in your life, and figure out how to grow from them, then ultimately, again, I'm going to end up putting that square in that circle. I'm going to do it. So, but everybody can do it. So yes, each of these people do play a certain role. The assignments are normally set up. They're set up before you come in. When you have your life review, the consensus is that you do kind of look and say, okay, I didn't do that one so well. And because our vibration is tied to Earth, and you will be reincarnating until you get to a certain level and you don't have to do that anymore, then you say, okay, I'm going to learn this. Now, each time you come back and you learn something new, that's part of the process of getting out of this 3D matrix, of evolving to that higher state. So that's a whole nother topic. I'll just stop.
And do you know of any lessons that clearly, that were from a past lifetime? Like I'm saying about my resentment towards physical.
So like that lifetime that I told you about, where my brother, it was a lifetime that I was in Germany. I was extremely poor. My current husband was my husband, and my brother was my son, and I was alone. My current husband had left me and my son, which is my brother now. So I hope I'm making sense. He had left me in that lifetime, and I was extremely sad and alone, and had all these abandonment issues and just vulnerability. So that would have been one of the lessons in this lifetime. Definitely was for me to not to get over abandonment issues and to really be super independent. But that past life could have also been a driving force for me being so independent this time, right? Where I'm a very much a take charge person. So it kind of interplays, but, and I also had to learn that I didn't need somebody else to love me for me to be loved or to be worthy of love. Always thinking somebody else, so if somebody else loves me, then okay, I'm loved and I'm okay. I don't need anybody else to love me. I really, truly, I'm at the phase, and that's part of, so, and that plays a part in it. I truly, I have me and the creator, and I'm great. Now, I bring in relationships, I bring in people, I have loving relationships, I'm open to them, but I don't need them. There's a difference,
Beautiful.
right?
Hey, can I ask you a question, April? Can I go ahead and,
Thank you, April. Go ahead, you.
yeah, with your dad, April, with your father, I know you, you get along with him. You said you sent, you know, you'll send a text to him, you'll do whatever, and that's it. But you at some point you stop reacting as far as there's nothing he can do. It basically, you just numbed out. Yes, you're just like there's nothing that can shock you, I guess, is what I was gathering from what you were saying. And the way I understood you, I'm just, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were sort of setting up boundaries with him, right? Just so you wouldn't expose yourself to even having to be numb as far as reacting. Now,
So it's not numb. I'm not numb. So there's a difference. Numb is I'm shutting my feelings off. I have nothing. When I'm in a space of connected with source and I'm in acceptance, then it doesn't bother me. His behaviors, his ego, his pain, his shadow, all of that doesn't bother me because I know that that is his stuff. I still have love for him. So,
okay, good. I mean, that's so by practicing that and you become, that's a natural thing. And we're supposed to be, show our gratitude and be nice. But I mean, it seems like I'm just with my own experience, I'm getting so good at not reacting. It's like I don't react to anything now. I'm talking, you know what I mean? I don't care what's thrown at me. I'm not reacting like I used to. And
but are you in your heart though? There's a difference from being, so people have asked Eckhart this too. I've seen them ask him this, and I've actually experienced this as well, that when you are practicing consciousness awareness and you are taking charge of your own energy field, that you will not react to others. And then you think, oh my gosh, do I have no feelings?
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm numb now. So the key is to be in your heart, you will still have feelings. I still have feelings. There are times where something still makes me mad or sad or what have you, but it's more coming from a space of love and unconditional love, and you're in your heart space.
Yeah,
So, but it's also a space of, so the numbness is, I think people mistake numbness for non-attachment.
yeah, that was the only adjective I could come up with.
You're right. So you're not attached to outcomes. I'm not attached to whether my dad is nice or mean. It can be either, I'm okay either way you want to go. I'm not attached to, oh, I need to go there and you need to behave in a certain way and you need to only say certain things. And if you do that, then we're going to have a good visit and I'm okay. It doesn't matter which way it goes. So it's also about the non-attachment. You're in your heart space and you're not attached to any outcome. But you still have emotions. The one thing about Eckhart is Eckhart has kindly he's almost numbed himself to where, because you do still want to be able to have joy and to have your emotions. You don't want to be completely flatlined.
Well,
That's not what the human experience is about.
no, I get you, because that's sort of what's happening. So I've gotten to the point where I analyze anything. I'm talking about love, hate, it doesn't matter. It's just, okay, I analyze, and I'm not reacting to love. I'm not reacting to, I'm just there. I'm hearing it. I'm seeing it.
So you got to go back into your heart space,
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's what.
right? Yeah. So you try to go back into your hearts, because you should still have love. And so like I have this cup here, right? That my niece gave me. My niece gave me this cup. I can't use it because I lost the lid. So she gives me this little cup for Christmas. It's got pictures of me and my great niece and nephew on it. I got some cute little flowers on it, right? It's just to give some color. So if it was to fall and break, I would be sad. But I would also accept that it has fallen and broken and that its time is done. So there's a fine line here. I still have emotions. I still am like, oh man, that really sucks. I really like that. But yet there's a point where it's like, okay, well, the cup's time is done. And you move forward, right? So I feel that emotion. And if it lasts a day, 2 days, an hour, I be with it, I let it run. And then at some point I practice acceptance, right? So I have experienced what you're talking about, where it's like, okay, I have no emotions. So what do I do? And I don't care. Oh, you're happy? Yeah, whatever. I feel nothing. You don't want that. I think Eckhart, he kind of went a little bit over. I like Eckhart in his concepts, but I can see exactly where you're at and what you're experiencing.
Yeah, that's all. I've only been exposed to Eckhart. None of this other stuff like the shadow and everything that Kelly's get into. Rob's book, he sort of puts it all together. He's coming from 5 different directions. It's really good. So
Yeah.
it's opening my eyes in different ways, But yeah, I'm this machine now, I'm just, because I'm taking it so serious, because I had issues. But I will tell you, I mean, it's opened me up for the better on all fronts. But I'm just to
Well,
this point.
it is better to practice this than to be reactive. Reactive is an unconscious way of behaving. Yeah. You want to talk, Kelly? Yeah.
Hey, Hugh, when's the last time you did something silly? Like had a pillow fight or like water balloon fight or something like that? Or
Hey, Kelly, with who? Myself?
I don't know.
I mean, come on, I
I don't know.
I'm a recluse.
I'm asking. But I mean, that's one of the things that I would actually use. Is I love everything that April said here, and Hugh, I know. So this is one of the things about being male and doing this work, is that we have this ability to pull in and be very, very restrained and like stoic when we are doing the mental analysis and when we're checking all the boxes, and super serious, because it is so important, because we clue into how important this is. And I've been where you are. I know exactly, like that's what I'm going, like what I would do for myself. Or even like, Kelly and I went to the Y and had like an aqua science class, and I was just like blowing bubbles in the pool and being silly and like on the pool noodle, pretending I had like a little spaceship and stuff, even doing stuff like that for oneself.
I walked into the room actually the other day, and you weren't serious, but I just started singing. I sang like in an off-key voice, like how glad I was to do something with you or something. Like we do that all the time, and it's funny because when you're working through things, and hey, if you need someone to like send you a joke or something or be silly, just send us a message.
Yeah, if you want to, like, silly cat, cat videos, is like I've got a peach.
Oh my god, you and your cat videos.
Things I've done, like when I worked in, so point of context, when I worked in a youth home, level 5 violent offenders youth home, doing overnights, the energy would be really, really heavy, really, really rigid. And I'd have like 10 hours to kill, right? So I would watch like in the middle of the night, like after the kids went to bed, I'd watch funny animal videos and I would laugh with myself. And that was one of the ways that I broke up A, the monotony, and B, the heaviness of the energy. And I realized that doing so also got me out of some of the hyper focus, super vigilant seriousness that I was prone to from my own patterns with my own parents being, grade 19 intellectuals and loving their big words and highfalutin concepts.
And can you see me roll my eyes there?
And she's like rolling her eyes because,
When I met him 10 years ago.
I was still using some of that highfalutin.
He's sometimes with the
Great,
big words. I
yeah.
was like, do I need a dictionary to have a conversation with you?
But I'm asking because I know for myself, as a very conscious and sensitive and aware male, that in order to process out, doing physical things are really, really important to get like that laughter and that joy to the surface. Like going, like honestly, like being silly and like jumping in puddles in the rain, like something like super childish that you haven't done since you were a kid, something that you loved, that you remember loving, doing, and being silly with. Go back to that feeling. Go back to that feeling. That's one of the things, one of the tricks I use for myself.
I'm really good at unconscious humor. You know what I mean? I got an old friend. I've been friends with him since first grade, and you don't want to hear that conversation, but it's funny as hell, But I sort of turned the tide a little bit, and I don't, and I share it's I tell him when I'm learning with Eckhart, and he takes a little, and it's really helped him, he just takes a little and rolls with it, but he's always listening to me.
Yep.
When you're sharing, you're sort of reciting to yourself, so you're learning it,
Yeah. Yes.
So.
Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, Kelly. Let me go to Patricia before it gets too late.
Yep.
Patricia, thank you, Kelly, for understanding. You want to say something? You got something? How's it going?
First, quickly off topic, I want to ask Kelly and Kelly, how far away are you from that wildfires that are making here air in New York unlivable?
We're very far away. So New York, Quebec, all those fires in Quebec, they're blowing down. And so Quebec is over here. Then you have Ontario, and Manitoba would literally be off screen. We don't have as many wildfires here, but
And then out west, there's more.
and out west there's more. So the most
We get smoke sometimes.
Yeah, we get
Like
smoke.
from coming from the west.
it
It was bad a couple months or a month or so ago.
Yeah, we're safe. Most of the wildfires, most of the forest fires are happening in northern Quebec. Like the reason why like the air is so bad in New York City right now. I've seen some of the red sky pictures. I'm going, wow, yeah, that's that's forest fires for you. When there's a lot of them. We've had that here years ago when the forest fires were bad. But no, we're good. We're safe right now.
It's good.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. The second thing is I want to thank you everyone, because every of our Q&As helped me something, and then I have the ability, I guess, I don't know if it's unique to me and others have it, but if I find something helpful, I'm open for it, and I take it right away and put it into practice. That like the quick start, and it really helped me the last 2 weeks to work through certain things, and it made a huge difference. And finding myself in that moment of presence when that what decisive moment happens, either doing it, react completely, going with old pattern, or doing that almost pattern interruption kind of thing, that doing something different. So the old way is trying to pull you into, and sometimes the first moment I even react, but then I'm able very quickly to do something, to leave the situation. And that happened with me and my daughter, and she triggered me. I was great. And then out of the blue, it was very silly because we watched Bruce Almighty comedy, which I think is a genius movie. And then afterwards, we were about to go to sleep, and she just asked me about something. And oh my God, my old self, like, oh, I'm only good for money, you don't appreciate everything I do, and blah, blah, blah. And that all of this came out immediately. And I said something, reacted though. So she reacted to it. She went to her room, she closed the door. Like, and then I found myself, oh, wow. So I quickly went to the shower, took a shower to just kind of stand in that water and rinse it all off. And then came out and was like, pray to God, please God, guide what I'm about to say, because I wanted this to come out right. And she thought that I'm walking into her room to yell at her, continue, because that's what I would do later, in previously, I would just come and yell until that my ego would just like the momentum. And this way, I just thanked her. And I explained it to her that there was a trigger and she didn't do anything wrong. But I was very grateful that she brought something to me, to my attention, that I thought I was over. And I told her that life sometimes, that what happens, you practice something, you think it's good, but then it happens again to kind of give you an opportunity to actually practice what you just learned, like to have that. And she actually was incredible. Like I saw the energy, because she was ready to just like cry and, getting that old way we were interact. And then when I was almost ready to go to bed, because I had to go to bed after, she actually opened her arms and it was, it's like ready to hug me. And I said, oh, I didn't impose my hug on you first, because in the past, when I did it, it was almost like I yelled at her, like beat her up, whatever, because I needed to. And then it's like, oh, let me hug you to make it all better. And she said, I didn't want you to hug me ever again, because for me, that hug was like, first you abuse me and then you hug me to make yourself feel better. But what does it do for me, kind of thing. And this time, so I didn't offer the hug. I just said my piece and wanted to go. But then she offered the hug. So there was like it was such a turnaround. So that was my thing. A little victory of the present moment that actually made a difference. So yes, and karma. What Poonam posted, those few podcasts with when there was interviews with Robert Edward Grant, I found so fascinating when he actually said that everything is the source of the entire world is in you. So all the the way I can, if he would, I would have to listen to it again, but it made so much sense that I project everything. So everything you are, everything is the reflection of what I am too, but in I don't know, it's but but the fact that he spent 13 nights in the pyramid of Giza, the Great Pyramid, and he felt this incredible vibration that is there, and the way it was built in such a precision of the geometry and like vibration, it was just so incredible. So I'm fascinated about the entire huge knowledge that this man opened just my brain to. And now even with those fires, I'm just observing myself being very worried about my human body and what's gonna happen, how unhealthy that breathing's gonna be. But in the same time, I'm being very aware with every breath. So it's kind of, I'm thankful because it's bringing me more and more to my presence practice. And how I try to visualize blue sky and beautiful blue clear sky. So thinking this shall pass. So I'm not being really, like super worried of for my physical body right now. But in a sense, in the same time, I'm feeling, observing, like April said, I still have feelings. Obviously, I don't want all that forest to be burning and all people to be suffering and our animals to be dying. It's a very catastrophic event on that plane, 3D plane. But if we are here to experience all dualities, oh, I know what I wanted to ask about what topic we were talking about. So is shadow impersonal the same as ego is? When Eckhart talks about ego, he said it's not personal. Like, I don't have my ego, you don't have your ego. It's just ego, which is that unconsciousness, and each one of us experiences through our very unique lens, because we are here to give that oneness our very unique perspective and experience on life. So is that what it is? So it's not like it's my shadow, it's just experience that was of some condition, some human conditioning that I'm experiencing from my uniqueness. I know I can't hear you, Kelly. Kelly, you are muted.
That's
No, I was actually talking to myself.
It's an interesting way that she put that, right?
Yeah, that was
It's-
really
It's
interesting.
making me go,
Yeah,
Yes and no.
yeah, yes and no.
So,
Yeah.
yes. So Eckhart talks about the global mind, right? The global, and yes, there's a global mindset, there's a global energy, there's a global shadow. However, our own individual personalities and programming from past lives, from the family that we've grown up in, the choices that we've made, the stories that we've told ourselves, the constructs that we've chosen to believe in as our personal identity, shape the energy of our shadow and how we actually express it outward to the outside world, and how we also project it at ourselves.
So there's a global shadow, but it's not the way that you put that, Patricia.
Yeah,
It is personal because your shadow is not the same as my shadow.
that's right.
yeah,
There you go.
there you go.
Yeah. So yeah.
So, I mean, we get what you're saying, but mine and your shadow, we might have some similarities, but my shadow is my shadow and yours is yours. Shadow is things that you have to work on, patterns, things from past lives, things from this life. Like you said, oh, my condition of yelling. That's part of the shadow. Why do I yell? Why do I do this?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It is actually
But if you said that ultimately each one of us are here to learn unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
So we are given shadow to transcend it. Right. This is kind of
we're not given shadow. We're not given shadow.
right. But if I'm a kid of 3-year-old and something happens to me, that did I choose this shadow? Because whatever happens to me then creates my shadow, because shadow, I think Poonam posted that I forgot that lady that
Day before.
it's talking about the whole shadow work, right? That shadow is kind of comes out of the shame because of what happens. Then we try to hide it. We are ashamed of it. So we kind of try to make up for it with different ways and just hold it very deep, and it takes energy and that stuff. So that's what we need to transcend, but it's not like it's personal.
But
It's
when
not mine. It's not mine, right? It's not specific.
It is yours.
It's just the
even the
way
It is
ego,
yours.
even the ego has like a personal aspect to it, because the ego is connected to the conditioned
Yeah.
patterns that are very unique to me. Every person has their unique signature patterns. The karmic memory in you is different from the karmic memory in me.
But there are the universal, like if how
There
many
is universal, Patricia,
don't
there is a
say self-love.
universal
Mhm.
karma. There's universal like karma, universal cosmic memory, universal akashic. There's a universal, but then your shadow is your shadow.
There's an
it's not-
individual
Yes.
aspect to it too.
Okay, so the first, okay, maybe this, I'm hoping this is easier for people to understand. I'm trying to break it down in my head as I'm talking about it, is that not everybody on the planet is born with light and shadow.
Yeah.
There are some people that are born of light, and we have a shadow to understand how it works.
Yeah.
And to know that we have the choice,
Yeah.
whether or not we're going to choose to do shadow, like to go that way, or we're going to be in light. Some of us hold more light than shadow, but there are some people on the planet that are not born with both.
Yeah.
So if we're having this conversation and you're asking that question, then you have both.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be having this conversation.
You wouldn't be able to articulate what you're
What you're
articulating.
saying,
You
yeah.
wouldn't be able to say what you're saying unless you had both in you. And what Kelly's getting at is like, yes,
Yeah.
people are
Keep
born,
going.
people have both light and shadow in them. Some people are actually born just shadow. Some people are born with more light. Some people are born with a lot of light, but they still have shadow because they're born into the illusion. And they have the energy of their mom and dad in them genetically, physically. So what Poonam was saying and what April was saying is like we have an individual ego, even though there's the great consciousness and the universal. Don't let yourself bypass yourself by assuming that, oh, it's just universal. Oh, it's just like because everybody has it, it's all like cosmic or whatever. Everybody has individual choices and seeds that they have in their energy field to learn and to have situations created outside of them to reflect back inward at their choices, at the other person's choices, at the world's choices, at everything, so that we can learn how to feel the contrast between light and dark, shadow, ego, light, heart, mind, all those aspects, so that we can learn how to feel and how to be present with everything that we feel. And yes, there's a global consciousness. Yes, it is mixed of both light and shadow, absolutely. But as Poonam said, like we each have individual lessons, individual trials that we have basically, tests that we have set up for ourselves to test ourselves, to learn how to actually like do all this. I mean, the simple fact that we're all here asking these questions, having these conversations is a clear indication that we're all aware of this. And, we're all in different spaces in this regard. Some of us have spent more time on this than others. but we're all here. We're all on this planet. Anyone that's on this planet is really, a high level, a very well-educated universal being, because there's a lot going on and there's a lot of energy moving. And this is the learning, is understanding how to deal with all of the energy, how to stay present with ourselves, how to understand the contrasts between light and dark, because that is where we learn how to be with ourselves and to be in our hearts.
So- Yeah.
Before Hugh speaks or anybody speaks, I want to clarify something. You're doing the same thing again, Patricia, like when you're reading something, you know how I said somebody read something from Eckhart and misapplied it? What Eckhart is saying when he says the ego is not personal, what he means is these patterns exist universally. Like being sexually abused, it's a universal pattern existing in that universal database. The being verbally abused, I'm not the only, out of the 8 billion people, I'm not the only one that has been verbally abused, right? And out of 8 billion people, I'm not the only one that has been physically abused. So that is what Eckhart means when he says the ego is not personal. What he means is these are patterns for thousands of years. They've been existing in humanity. And if you follow April's
How
favorite
was I
person,
misunderstood? I actually understood exactly the same way, that this is what it means. So why do you
but
think
there's a, no, you're not understanding that these are universal patterns, but I am born with my, out of the universal database of how many unconscious things can exist, I have my unique individual ego. You have your individual, you may not have been sexually abused, but I may be sexually abused, right? So that is my pattern. That's my,
ego is not being or not being sexually abused. Ego is the reaction, unconscious reaction.
so would I not have an unconscious reaction to being sexually abused?
Right.
You will not
Right.
have that,
So
you will
it
not
doesn't
have the
mean-
same,
What I'm
you will
saying
not-
is the event itself.
Patricia,
is
try
not
to understand. You will not have the same resentment and hatred and rage about sexual abuse as I would have, because I have been sexually abused, right? If there are two people, each experience is unique. Does that make sense?
I'm not arguing that though. I'm not saying that it's not.
You're not understanding that
She's
each
actually talking
individual
about
will,
shadow. She's actually talking about shadow. She wants to understand shadow. I think you guys are actually talking about the same thing in terms of the ego and the ego patterns. I think you both understand the ego patterns. What Patricia's asking is about shadow.
no,
Yeah.
but her question, her premise is that the ego is not personal. But what we are saying is each person has a personal ego. Like the egoic patterns in Eckhart will be different from egoic patterns in Poonam, will be different from egoic patterns in April, and will be different from egoic patterns in Patricia. Depending on the life experiences, egoic patterns are the impressions that we had right from when we were born. We were born with certain patterns, and then our family put in patterns, our city put in our patterns, our country put in patterns, our geographic region, our religion put in patterns. We have so many patterns to the ego. There's not just one pattern, right? Hugh had a question. Go ahead, Hugh.
Back to the shadow, which I know nothing about. Can you reduce the shadow by introducing more light? Is there a way to?
Yeah.
So
So the idea is like the same thing as the shadow. Like if I have a light, is shining the light on it reduces the shadow.
Yep.
Shadow is individual. You have your own shadow. There is a collective shadow. However, it is your individual shadow that is based off of the experiences that you have had in this lifetime and other lifetimes. It is the parts of yourself that like to hide. that likes to be sneaky, hence shadow, right? Why do you react in such a way? And it just, you think you're on this path and you're doing so good, and you're trying to be conscious and you're trying to be aware and trying to be mindful and all these things. And then you still be, how come why am I mad? Why'd I just swear at that person? That's your shadow. It's sneaky, it hides. It is very, very, almost extremely similar to ego. So similar. It's almost undetectable similar. Okay. So you do have your own shadow though, because of your own experiences. It is yours, and it is
But
different
is
than
shadow
mine.
is shadow how we wanted to hide the ego? Like,
Yeah,
how
I
we
guess
wanted
that would
to
kind of
make
be a good way. Carl, this is another Carl Jung
That's a good way of putting it.
concept. Yep, that is a good way of. It is a protection. I mean, ultimately, it is in the shadow because it is another form of protection. It's another layer to the ego, another layer of protection.
See,
It's
with,
like-
Another layer.
We don't want to accept that we have anger within us. We don't want to accept that we have frustration within us. We don't want to accept that if we are speaking against sexual abuse, we are abusive ourselves. We are not accepting that
so
about
we
ourselves.
cover something that we are ashamed of in a sense, right?
Not so much as a shame. We are not accepting that even that pattern that we are judging in another, we are judging sexual abuse, but that may be I'm abusive as well. I'm not knowing all the times that I've been abusive in my life. Not leave alone in my past lives. How many times have I been abusive, right? And it's getting late. I know April, Patricia, you wake up at 4 a.m. and I wake up at 4 a.m. So it's getting very late for us. How about we talk about this next Facebook Live Q&A? Is the shadow personal or not? Okay.
Okay.
So incredibly amazing conversation. Thank you so much. Eternally grateful to all of you. Much love, many blessings. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye.